So for some time, my biggest struggle was always that I desired people to be happy. And like I always wanted people to feel joyful. I always wanted to be a part of the joy. I always wanted to be a part of the thing that was making them happy. And I realized this a lot recently, but the older I grew, that the only reason I desired for people to be happy was because I thought that their happiness brought me love. Like I thought that if I was to make people joyful or make people happy around me, that it would make me feel better about me. And the more I grew and the more I learned, the more I realized that that's just not true. Like you should care about people. You should want to make people happy. You should want to serve and love people. But the question is, at what cost? When that costs you your peace, when that costs you your self-love, when that costs you your identity, just to have people around you that don't make you feel loved, that don't make you feel peace, that don't give back what you're willing to put into, it's not worth it. And we get so wrapped up in trying to do those things because again, it's natural for us, but it's also traumatic. There's something in us that isn't healed that desires for us to think that if we do these things, it's going to solve that thing. It's going to soothe or heal that part of me. And if I'm not aware of that, it's going to be easy to manipulate me. For a lot of us, we get so caught up in this desire because this is what's called at its core people pleasing, right? That's like the term that we're using very often now. But you have to realize that this comes from something. There is something in you. There's a place that was neglected. There's a love that wasn't given to you. There's a vindication or an achievement that you achieved that people didn't admire, or all these things. You're trying to solve or soothe that wound by making other people feel happy around you. And you think that if you give more, that attention equates love, and it doesn't. The truth is that we drag ourselves through the mud. We ruin ourselves. We hurt ourselves in hopes to get people to stay, to love us, to make us feel like we're valued. And this is happening. You see this very common. You see it so common with kids in school, high school specifically. You see like the bully, right? The common thing is that the bully desires to feel love by doing something that makes other people laugh or makes other people scared of them or all these things. Why? Because it's a push-pull thing. We think that this action, whether it hurts or it feels good or anything of that nature, as long as other people see that and are joyful by it, then it validates me. And the truth is that it doesn't. All you're doing is selling yourself short in hopes that somebody might see something good. And I need you to understand that there is no place in this world where you acting like anything that is not you will ever bring you joy. You being something that is not genuinely and fully you will actually make you happy. You actually doing the things that you desire, the things that are fulfilling your heart are good for you. Those things, that place, that's where you'll find the people that will validate you. And I know it's scary because the thought of being alone is just this reality where we have to solve everything or soothe our own pains or make ourselves feel good. That's a scary thought because you don't rely on anyone else. But when you realize that it doesn't matter because no one else is going to do it for you, it changes everything. You have to come to this realization where no matter how happy you make other people, no matter how much they laugh, no matter how much they love, no matter how good they feel because of the things that you've bent over backwards to do, if you're the only one giving, you'll be the only one losing. The energy is gone. You don't feel purposeful. And I know personally, I've put myself in situations where I've been a constant giver. I've given so much of me to people that have just received, but haven't actually given me anything tangible. And I want to be clear, you need to make a distinction between words and actions because you can say a lot of things and do nothing. You can blurt out a lot of words and nothing can change. People can tell you, I love you, I care for you, all these amazing things. They could say how grateful they are for you, but the question is, what do their actions match? And that doesn't mean that you only have to do things for people and expecting something back, but natural reciprocity should be there. People should desire to give to you because they love you, not because you do for them, but because they desire to do for you. And it's good that you are a giver, and it's good that you desire to love and to give into places to people, but you need to realize that if you keep pouring into empty wells that never pour back into you, at some point you will be empty. No wonder people are so sad and depressed and anxious because they continue to pour into places that do nothing for them. And we have to be clear that we do not tie our self-worth, our peace, our comfort to other people. Like the thing is that this happens very often, right? We think that this validation that they're giving us, this attention that they're giving us is going to make us feel worthy. And it won't. Because the truth is that no one can ever make you feel worthy. Only you can. Self-worth is the reality of who you are and not what you do. So we need to come to terms with this, that at some point in our lives, we're going to lose people that are just going to walk away, or we're going to push away because of this. Because when you realize that none of those people actually validate you, that none of those people actually matter, that yes, you can love and you can give, but if it's a place of use, you will never feel love. When you realize these things, you stop putting so much attention into them. You stop giving them this authority. And again, this is every type of relationship, platonic, romantic, family, all that stuff. All these things are important. But we see it very commonly, of course, in romantic relationships. We think that if we do more for a person, because I do agree with loving without constraints, right? With loving without contention, without loving without conditions. But there's a difference between loving without conditions and being stupid. There's a huge difference between giving more into a place that is important into you. So yes, give unconditionally, but make sure that it's something that's reciprocal and not something that's just of use of you. But we see it in all kinds of relationships. And I think the ones that are often neglected, because family is a different conversation, right? Family is something that you need to realize that there are things that you are going to put yourself in places and are going to be put in places that responding isn't always the best tactic, right? You rather have peace than division and fights. But you also need to realize that you aren't a person of use, you're a person of love. So if you are just being used for something, it's okay to draw your distance. You don't have to hate people to be away from them, but you do have to love you enough to move. We see this often in friendships. And I think this is the one that for a lot of us, we misunderstand or misread because we don't know the difference between authentic friendships and authentic use. We don't know the difference between people who are good for us and people who we are good for. People that are using you for different tactics. And this is really easy to discern, honestly. Is this relationship fruitful for my life? Am I actually benefiting something from this? Again, you don't need to use people, but you do need to understand that people that love you will give in to you. It's never use. You're not expecting, but you should anticipate, because a person that desires to give something to you is going to do these things naturally, right? A person that genuinely loves you is never going to make you question where you stand with them. And we fall into this trap of thinking that people are things that they're not even showing us they are. We create a narrative for them that isn't existent. So whatever kind of relationship, but specifically in this one, that friendship aspect of things, is it something that's actually fruitful for you? Like if you were to need something in the middle of the night, would these people show up for you? Would they do these things? Do they console you? Do they give you? Do they love on you instead of love with you? Because there's a difference, right? Loving on you is when you cannot give something, they can give into you. Loving with you is simply using you. It's like being in a car, right? Someone can drive and they can drive when you can't drive, or they're just in the car with you of convenience because you're going to the same place. We need to realize that some relationships are okay to lose. They're okay to let go of, because if we continue to hold on to these things, we'll continue to burden ourselves. It's surprising that so many people don't realize they're being dragged. Like, you realize that they're being dragged into something. You're holding on to something that's just pulling you along, not because it desires to bring you with it, but because you're the one holding on. What happens when you let go? What happens when you stop holding on to things that are just dragging you? What happens when you stop reaching out? What happens when you stop calling? What happens when you stop making plans? What happens when you stop being the mediator of that relationship? Does it exist, or does it stop? Does it fail? The reality is that for a lot of us, we are the only reason that these things exist, not because people love us, but because it's easy for them to just show up to places that you are going to provide convenience to. Now, again, clearly, life is crazy. We all have 1,000 things going on, and we have to care about these things, and distance is a factor, and time is a factor, and jobs are factors, and all these things are genuine factors. They are, in fact, things that are difficult. Not every relationship is like that, but I feel that most of us know the relationships that are dwindling because it's one-sided. Not that we have difficulties with our lives, our schedules, but we are aware of things that aren't reciprocal. Like, I can sit here and have friends that I don't speak to for months, but I know that it's because life is crazy. I know there's 1,000 things going on, and we can't always be in constant communication, especially for me. I'm very introverted, so that alone is already a factor. But those people would know that. They would know that life is crazy and that I'm very introverted, and that is a factor. Now, there are people who would only speak to you out of convenience. I need this. Oh, I need you to do this. Oh, I need this kind of validation, or you just happen to be in the vicinity. We know those things, whether consciously or subconsciously. We are aware of the relationships that are of use and not of love. We know when people desire to just have us around because it's convenient to them, and when people desire to have us around because they love us. Now, the question is, it's not do we know, it's what do we do? Like, do we actually make the changes to not be there when that's there? So that same concept, if I'm the only one making the effort for anything, when it's mutually beneficial, right? That we're not super busy and life is not super crazy, that we're in this situation that we can be these things. Is that a mutual beneficial relationship, or is that a relationship where they have use of me, or I am of convenience because I'm the comedic relief? I'm of convenience because I have the connections, and convenient because I'm the one with the car. Whatever that situation is, are you of use or of love? I think we've gotten so wrapped up in the fact that it's easy to just be used that we stop allowing ourselves the freedom and the grace to let go, to let those people move on, to let ourselves move on. You're not a person of use, an object of use. You're a person of love. It's okay to let those relationships end. And it's scary because you've been doing so much work and you've made so much effort and so much time invested. But honestly, just because you've invested so much time into a mistake doesn't mean you continue to make it. Just because you've been in the same place, just because you understand the hurt doesn't mean it's your hurt to bear. Just because you've been in those things doesn't mean you continue to put yourself in those things. You have to realize that you have to let go of the things that are dragging you. It's either let go or be dragged. If they're not serving you, they're stealing from you. That's just plainly what it is. All relationships are energy, right? That whole sense of Newton's law of energy, right? That there's an equal reaction for every reaction, right? So it has to be mutually beneficial. There has to be something that is given. If you continue to pour and nothing is given back, you'll just be empty. You'll feel like you have nothing going on because you poured so much into a place that hasn't poured back into you. It's okay to let things go. At the end of the day, that's life. You can love people from a distance, but if you continue to hold on, you'll continue to be dragged.